Awesome. Well, here we are again into another module of digital forensics. This one will deal with some undercover stuff for open source intelligence as part of investigations. Some of this stuff may change with time. A lot of it has links to online resources. So it can be that a link that I added in a while ago is no longer available because that service is down. So take the links with a grain of salt and always verify that they work, because sometimes they do, sometimes they're down. It always varies. So an undercover investigation is the process used to acquire information without the individual or the suspect knowing the true identity of the investigator. There are things like background checks, building a profile through reconnaissance methods online. There is surveillance, monitoring the suspect's residence, the movements, their daily routine, chat rooms, and other user group activities to build a behavioral profile. Investigators planned how detectives will record the activities, request warrants for wiretaps, and plan how the interaction between the detective and the suspect will occur. And then there's the sting operation, designed to catch the criminal in an act of committing or planning to commit a crime. It's not difficult for a detective, or anyone really, to create a sock puppet, an undercover identity, in order to perform the recon on a suspect or use in a sting operation. There's things like fake name generators, and the person does not exist, in order to create a name and persona, along with using tools like Gmail, to Proton Mail, to Mailinator, to use burner phones or TextNow, use things like Bitcoin Laundry, One Vanilla, PayPal, VPNs, masking identities, and proxies. Law enforcement can also use something called LEAP, or Local Number Portability Enhanced Analytical Program, to track criminals who try to evade investigation by switching phone carriers or use tools like reverse lookups. Law enforcement requires a wiretap to record phone conversations, and the laws vary state by state whether this can be admitted as evidence and which parties must consent. Our usual World Wide Web, or the clear web, is easy to use with traditional browsers. There's also the unindexed part of the web, which we normally refer to as the dark web, an encrypted network that still uses the public internet. There is a tremendous amount of resources for finding open source intelligence, with detailed links to where you can get more information. In the lecture notes, there's a link to the Open Source Intelligence Framework. That's what this is a picture of. Where if you want to dig in for IP addresses, you'll get a bunch of links. Here specifically, I clicked on dark web and it opened up various tools that I could use. The Onion router, otherwise referred to as Tor, is a free, open source, and open network that allows users to surf anonymously. A user can download the Tor browser bundle to connect through proxies to the Tor network. Tor websites are not accessible by the ClearNet. It is problematic for investigators because identities are obfuscated and sites' locations can be unknown. Tor sites are known to conduct criminal activities and a breeding ground for malware such as the Silk Road. Although it is difficult to determine the identities of users online, upon seizure of a computer, law enforcement can gather evidence about a user's activity on Tor, like retrieving browser activity from RAM, the hibernation file, or your swap file. Tails is a live Linux, the amnesic incognito live system, a live Linux OS that can provide anonymity for the user. I do want to point out, though, that being anonymous on Tor isn't necessarily a guarantee, because you are going through other systems. And if you don't trust the other systems that are proxying your data, but you don't know if those are the ones who are watching you. The Invisible Internet Project is another tool similar to Tor. It uses public-private key encryption with websites hosted anonymously. On the suspect's computer, you'll find a router.config file that contains information about the I2P connectivity, with I2P files associated with this network. There's also SecureDrop, an open submission system funded by the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which allows whistleblowers to anonymously communicate with journalists. I briefly mentioned this site, the Silk Road. This marketplace facilitated criminals to sell drugs, counterfeit documents, and other illegal items anonymously to consumers using Bitcoin. This combination left virtually no paper trail. It was eventually taken down by the FBI and Homeland Security investigations. But just like with any criminal activity, if you bring down this, more show up. So there have been many more marketplaces that evolved since this. There's another one called Playpen. It distributed sexually explicit images of minors. According to the FBI, 25 producers of child porn in the U.S. were prosecuted, 51 abusers were prosecuted, 55 children were successfully identified or rescued in the U.S., and many more internationally. This takedown resulted in 350 arrests in the U.S. and 548 internationally. There was a bit of controversy, as allegedly the FBI was in control of the server for 2 weeks, installing malware onto computers that visited the site in order to identify the users. And interestingly enough, the federal prosecutor for that case, Andit Hayes, chose to dismiss the case rather than disclose whether they did or didn't. Operation Bayonet is a 2017 multinational law enforcement operation between the HSI, FBI, and Europol to shut down two of the most notorious marketplaces, Alphabay and Hansa. The founder of Alphabay was arrested but never put on trial, as he died in his cell several days after his arrest. His assets of $23 million were found. In the case of Hansa, the security researcher found a development version of the marketplace that had an old IRC chat, logs detailing all the information from the admins. These are all the crazy fun things you can do as a digital forensics investigator. A little bit about virtual currencies. Fiat currency is a legal tender backed by a government or governments, like the US dollar or the euro. Virtual currencies are non-state sponsored currencies that are sent from one device to another and is only transferred once an algorithm is solved by a middleman or a miner. A public ledger of transactions assures the integrity of the transactions. Not all virtual currencies are cryptocurrencies, such as Second Life, which uses Leiden dollars. Virtual currencies carry tax consequences in different jurisdictions, such as in the US via the IRS, where a Bitcoin miner is considered a money service business. And Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, decentralized peer-to-peer virtual currency. Bitcoin is not illegal in the US and can be used for nefarious anonymous transactions. This currency uses Bitcoin wallet to store the currency, with many to choose from, and are encrypted with SHA-256 with a public and private key. One way of knowing that Bitcoin is being used on a machine is finding a wallet.dat file on a suspect's device. A Bitcoin miner will solve a mathematical problem requiring tremendous computing power before forwarding the Bitcoin currency to the recipient. In return, the miner will receive a small percentage of Bitcoin for solving the algorithm. The blockchain is the electronic public ledger that keeps track of all Bitcoin transactions or blocks. Although publicly visible, determining who is responsible for each transaction is a little problematic without knowing the date and time of a transaction and knowing the identities of the people. Each block can also be a combination of user transactions. Criminals will use services like Bitcoin Tumbler to mix up their transactions with others or convert one cryptocurrency to another. Not to say, again, that it's impossible to find them. It's just a little harder. Venmo and Vicemo are two peer-to-peer payment services. Both can provide law enforcement investigators with potentially useful information. Since websites change their content continuously, investigators need to have tools on hand to get information from old versions of sites. For example, the Wayback Machine and statistics from netcraft.com can provide website statistics and other useful information. There is another paid tool called Alexa. That's just something you could have in your back pocket, but I would prefer to use the free stuff. In the notes, I have a longer list of tools to help you find personal information, personal interest in groups, instant messenger, social media, internet protocols, and some law enforcement stuff as well. And then a couple of terms that relate with online crime. Identity theft can happen without the need to know a user's password. With enough open source intelligence knowledge, a password can be reset with information gathered from websites mentioned in the list before. Multi-factor authentication can help mitigate successful breaches. So just remember, all the information that people post on social media, that people put on sites and whatnot, all of that can be used to answer those security questions and be able to get access and reset passwords without the need of knowing the password. Credit cards for sale is an ongoing global issue. As devices with this information are captured, data stolen and sold on the dark web with malware. Electronic medical records are actually more valuable than social security numbers. This is because it contains more personally identifiable information that is useful for a larger range of fraudulent activity. Counterfeit and counterproliferation investigations. Counterproliferation refers to efforts to prevent the export of weapons and proprietary technologies to foreign nations or terrorist groups through U.S. customs, shipping vessels, and more. That can also extend to digital information and tools, such as there's a few countries who you can't send cryptographic tools to. For cyberbullying, prosecutors rely heavily on digital evidence from online sources from the victim and suspects' computers, along with web service providers. With regards to social media, online criminal activity is not simply motivated by money or a challenge of wits. There are also religious propaganda, politically charged motives, and state-sponsored attacks. And as a quick reminder of capturing online content in real time or retroactively, you would need to use things like screen captures, video, like downloading video evidence from sites like YouTube, viewing cookies, the Windows registry, and anything with the web browsers. So here is the work for this week. If you've never used the dark web, this will be your chance. I made a couple of questions for you to answer. Nothing too difficult. It's really just surfing the Tor network. Again, if you've never done it before because you've been scared because, the dark web sounds scary, it's not. Just giving you a chance to look around. There are tons of clear websites that you use all the time that have a Tor facing side. You just have to find it and go to it and go, hey, look, here is a backend. No, you're not going to be on the FBI's watch list. No. And again, you don't have to write a long essay. I'm not looking for huge essays to answer these questions. Just, what did you see? What was different about the dark web? Was it the same? Yes, no. No, it was the same. Or, yes, it's different. Nothing complicated. The big thing, though, for this week is your first case. So, I have put the case scenario here. I've given you the hashes for these files so you can verify that you correctly downloaded the files and they are accurate. I have also put all the questions in the quiz here. Because some people didn't follow directions with binary games. So here we are again with something similar. So I want to reiterate. You have the scenario here to read. You have the files and their hashes. So you can verify that you that you have the correct file. Here are the questions you need to answer. When you have the answers to these questions, then start the quiz. Don't start it before. Here are all the questions you're going to see. I'm not going to throw you a bonus question that's not on this list. The case files are right here. And again, once you download the file, you want to verify that you got it correctly because there's the sum for it. It is a small case. You are welcomed to work together. Use Discord to talk to one another and help solve the questions in the case. I actually encourage you to use Discord to chit-chat and solve the cases. It is by no means cheating. Once again, I'll repeat. You are not cheating by working together on Discord to solve these cases. I encourage you to. Now, you can do it on your own if you so choose, but you don't have to. Any questions on the lecture and the work for this week? Can I expand this? Yes, I can. Oh, cool. Oh, interesting. Well, hopefully, with this really small lab, you should be able to ingest everything quickly. Did you select all the ingest or just the defaults? You might want to try just the defaults. Any other questions? Oh, it took me 2 hours to process. Oh, fun. Oh, make sure that you give the virtual machine that's running Autopsy, make sure to give it more CPU and RAM so it can process faster. When you go through the wizard of creating a case and you get to the ingest modules, don't check anything because there's already things that are checked. So you just click on next, really. If you have your VM up, we can see what's up. If there are no questions on the topic or the lab for this week, I'll stop this stream and then I can help you guys out. Okay, seeing none.